The colony ship Aurora had been floating dead in space for 3 days when Commander Sarah Mitchell received a distress signal. The message was broken and filled with static, but the fear in the voice was clear. Something had gone terribly wrong on the mining station of Kepler 442b. Something that nobody could have predicted. Sarah gathered her crew of 12 soldiers and 2 scientists in the briefing room. The holographic display showed the blue planet below them. It was supposed to be a simple rescue mission. The mining colony had stopped responding to communications, and the company wanted answers. What they found when they landed would change everything humanity knew about survival in the universe. The landing was rough. The station's guidance systems were offline, and the pilot had to bring them down manually through thick clouds of blue dust. When the ship touched ground, Sarah was the first one out. The air was breathable, but heavy, with a strange sweet smell that made her stomach turn. The mining station stood half a kilometer away, its lights flickering in the darkness of the alien night. Dr. James Chun walked beside her, scanning the environment with his equipment. His face grew pale as he studied the readings. The biological signatures were off the charts. Something was alive in there, and it was not human. Sarah ordered her team to spread out and approach with caution. They had no idea what was waiting for them inside those metal walls. The main door of the station had been torn apart from the inside. Claw marks covered the metal surface, deep gouges that spoke of incredible strength. Sarah switched on her flashlight and stepped through the broken entrance. The corridor beyond was covered in a thick blue substance that hung from the walls like wet cloth. It pulsed slightly, as if it was breathing on its own. Private Rodriguez was the first to find a body. It was one of the miners, or what was left of him. His chest had been ripped open from the inside, and his face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror. Whatever had killed him had not come from outside. It had grown inside his body and forced its way out. Sarah felt her blood run cold as she realized the truth. This was not an attack. This was an infestation. They moved deeper into the station, past more bodies and more of the blue growth. The substance was everywhere now, covering the floors and ceilings in a thick layer that made walking difficult. Dr. Chun took samples and ran quick tests on his portable equipment. His findings confirmed the worst fears. The blue matter was organic, and it was spreading fast. At its current rate, it would cover the entire planet within months. The team reached the central chamber of the station, where the main reactor hummed with power. What they saw there made several soldiers drop their weapons in shock. A massive creature sat in the middle of the room, its body nearly touching the ceiling above. It was the color of deep ocean water, with skin that glistened under the emergency lights. Multiple arms extended from its torso, each one ending in sharp claws that could cut through steel like paper. This was the Queen. She turned her enormous head toward the humans and let out a sound that was half scream and half song. Around her lay thousands of eggs, each one the size of a human head and glowing with inner light. Some of them were already hatching, releasing smaller versions of the creature that immediately began to crawl toward the intruders. The infestation had found a home, and it was not going to leave without a fight. Sarah opened fire first. Her plasma rifle burned through the air and struck one of the small creatures, turning it into ash. Her team followed her example, creating a wall of fire between themselves and the advancing horde. But for every creature they killed, 3 more took its place. The Queen continued to lay eggs even as the battle raged around her, her body working with terrible efficiency to produce more offspring. The team retreated to a narrow corridor where they could control the flow of enemies. Private Jackson set up the heavy machine gun and began to cut down the creatures as they approached. For a moment, it seemed like they might hold their ground. Then the walls around them started to move. The blue substance was alive, and it was responding to its Queen's commands. It wrapped around Jackson's legs and pulled him down before anyone could react. Dr. Chun grabbed Sarah's arm and shouted over the noise of battle. He had found something in the data files of the station's computer. The miners had discovered the Queen's egg chamber 3 weeks ago, buried deep beneath the surface. They had thought it was a valuable find, something they could sell for a fortune. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and hungry. The Queen had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for the right time to rise again. Sarah made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She ordered her team to fall back to the ship while she stayed behind with the explosives. Someone had to destroy the Queen and her eggs, or the infestation would spread to other worlds. Her soldiers protested, but she silenced them with a look. This was not a request. This was an order from their commander. The retreat was bloody and desperate. Half of the team fell to the creatures before they reached the ship. The survivors lifted off just as the station behind them exploded in a ball of fire and light. Sarah had triggered the reactor core, creating an explosion that vaporized everything within a kilometer radius. They watched from orbit as the mushroom cloud rose into the alien sky. It was over. The Queen was dead, and humanity had won its first battle against an enemy it never knew existed. But they were wrong. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, another egg chamber remained untouched by the explosion. The Queen had been clever. She had spread her offspring to multiple locations, ensuring that her species would survive even if she did not. The eggs began to hatch one by one, releasing creatures that were born with a single purpose: find new hosts, spread to new worlds, consume everything in their path. The news of the mining station reached Earth 3 months later. By then, 2 more colonies had gone silent under similar circumstances. The governments of humanity gathered in emergency sessions to discuss the threat. They argued about what to do, how to respond, whether this was even real or just some elaborate hoax. While they talked, the infestation continued to grow. General Marcus Thompson was put in charge of the military response. He was an old soldier who had seen too many wars and lost too many friends. But he had never faced anything like this before. The creatures were fast, smart, and almost impossible to kill. They could survive in vacuum, withstand extreme temperatures, and reproduce at a rate that made traditional warfare useless. Every battle won was followed by 10 battles lost. The turning point came when Dr. Chun, now working at a secret research facility, made a breakthrough discovery. The creatures communicated through a specific frequency of sound, a song that connected them all to their queens. If humanity could disrupt that frequency, they could break the hive mind and turn the creatures against each other. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only plan they had. The weapon they created was called the Siren. It was a massive device that could broadcast the disrupting frequency across entire planets. Building it required resources from every nation on Earth, a cooperation that had never been seen before in human history. Old enemies worked side by side, forgetting their differences in the face of total extinction. Humanity was finally united, and it was ready to fight back. The first test of the Siren took place on the colony world of New Geneva. The planet had been overrun for 6 months, its entire population either dead or transformed into hosts for the creatures. General Thompson led the assault personally, dropping from orbit with 10,000 soldiers behind him. They landed in the ruins of the capital city and activated the Siren as soon as their boots touched ground. The effect was immediate and devastating. The creatures stopped their advance and began to shake violently. They turned on each other with savage fury, tearing apart their own kind in a frenzy of confused violence. The soldiers moved through the chaos, burning nests and destroying eggs wherever they found them. By the end of the day, the infestation on New Geneva was broken. Humanity had found its weapon. The war lasted another 5 years. It was the hardest and bloodiest conflict in the history of the species. Billions of lives were lost across dozens of worlds. Entire planets were rendered uninhabitable by the fighting. But humanity did not give up. They fought with everything they had, pushing back the infestation one system at a time. The creatures learned to fear the sound of the siren and the soldiers who carried it in the battle. The final battle took place on the home world of the Queens, a dark planet at the edge of known space. Intelligence reports suggested that this was where the species had originated, where their oldest and most powerful queens still waited. General Thompson, now old and tired but still determined, led the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity to this distant corner of the galaxy. They were going to end this war once and for all. The planet was covered entirely in the blue substance, a living world that pulsed with alien life. The fleet bombarded it from orbit for 3 days, creating massive craters in the surface. Then the soldiers dropped, millions of them, carrying sirens and weapons and the will to survive. They fought through endless waves of creatures, pushing toward the massive structure at the planet's core, where the Queens had made their final stand. What they found inside was beyond anything they had imagined. Hundreds of queens gathered together, their bodies intertwined in a complex pattern that seemed almost religious. They were ancient beings, older than humanity itself, and they had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had never faced an enemy that could match their power until now. The soldiers activated their sirens and watched as the queens turned on each other in confusion and rage. The destruction of the queens marked the end of the war. Without their leaders, the remaining creatures became mindless beasts that were easily hunted down and destroyed. The blue substance withered and died, leaving behind dead planets that would take centuries to recover. Humanity had paid a terrible price for its victory, but it had survived. It had faced extinction and refused to accept it. Commander Sarah Mitchell, now an old woman decorated with every honor humanity could offer, gave the final speech at the victory celebration. She spoke of the soldiers who had fallen, the worlds that had been lost, and the unity that had saved them all. She reminded everyone that the universe was vast and full of dangers, but that humanity would face each one with the same courage and determination. The stars belonged to them now, and nothing would ever take that away. The recovery took generations. New colonies were built on the ashes of the old ones, and the population slowly climbed back to its pre-war numbers. The technology developed during the conflict was adapted for peaceful purposes, opening new frontiers for exploration and settlement. Humanity spread across the galaxy like a wave, carrying with it the memory of what they had overcome. They never forgot the blue creatures and their terrible queens. Deep in the archives of the military command, the records of the war were preserved for future generations. They told the story of a species that had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger than before. They spoke of heroes and sacrifices, of battles won and lost, of the unbreakable spirit that defined what it meant to be human. And somewhere in those records was a simple truth that every child learned from birth. When the universe tried to destroy humanity, humanity fought back and won.